Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the Mama Saga. And this is where this Marvel loving mama is a mother and an attorney by day, but then by night, I love to cover as much all things Marvel as I can. MCU or not, comic book or not, Disney Plus or not. And today, I want to cover my first watch through reactions to Miss Marvel episode 4. So, of course, it should go without saying, spoiler alert, of course. Okay, let me put in the comments down below. Spoiler warning, just in case you haven't seen all 4 episodes of Miss Marvel by now. Okay, so if you haven't seen all 4 episodes of Miss Marvel by now, this is your opportunity to get out and then circle back and share your observations. Let me know if there's any Easter eggs that I might have missed. And for sure, what I like to do with members of my community over the last several videos that I've done, if you let me know a Marvel related video that you want me to do, whether it's Miss Marvel or not, you can ask for it in the comments of any of my videos. Ideally, my more recent ones, I'm more likely to see that. But I do check my comments, and I will not only do the video that you've requested, but I will give you a shout out in the video to at least give you credit for having given me the idea to do it. So live or on the replay, you're more than welcome to do that. All right, so my live stream reactions to these videos, what I do is I watch the video the first time through on Disney Plus, and I will transcribe what I see. I'll try to catch any Easter eggs that I can, and then I'll give you my reactions and my theories. But again, if you haven't seen episode 4 of Miss Marvel, or at least all 4 episodes, because I might be referring back and forth to some other things that carried through to this episode, this is your chance to get out. So, and then come back later. So, Seeing Red, that's the name of this episode. And I don't know about you, but when somebody brings up a color, it's very interesting psychologically what you end up doing. So if somebody mentions the color red, what you end up doing is looking through the whole video and everything that's colored red pops out at you. There is so much red that pops out at you, and some of them are kind of Easter egg-esque in quality, but I'll get there. And there's a lot of ways that both literally and figuratively Kamala ends up seeing red throughout this episode. So we open up to like a dark, cloudy night sky, and the clouds are pulling away, and you can see the bright lights of the city below. And then we realize as the viewer that we're inside an airplane, and Kamala's there with her stuffed winged sloth baby, and she's traveling to Pakistan. And, her mother is like one person over. So they have a stranger reading a newspaper between the two of them. Hey, Chillmonger, what's going on? Red is in Red Dagger, of course. What's up, Chill? Good to see you on a live. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you talking me up to other people. I really, really do. That is the nicest thing that you can do when someone launches a channel. So you let me know if I've missed any Easter eggs, because you're really good. So Muneeba's with her mother. She's kind of all smart alecky, and she's confirmed that Kamala's going to be, because she's grounded for how the mother feels. She's ruined her brother Amir's wedding, but right now, her sentence is being paused because they're going over to Pakistan, and she basically makes it clear that if her mother hadn't made such a big deal, they wouldn't be going. And then Muneeba says perhaps she, meaning Kamala's grandmother Sana, can figure out whatever you've been up to lately. So you don't know as you're how much Muneeba knows or doesn't know. But it's interesting, by the time you get to the end of the episode, you're still not 100% sure. There's still a possibility about what Muneeba does not know or what she knows. But it's interesting what gets revealed as we go through this journey in terms of what Muneeba thinks. So I love how they carry forward the convention from episodes 1, 2, and 3, where like you see texts and thought bubbles and stuff and text bubbles showing up in unusual places. So we have in the airplane window, you can see that Kamala is trying to text Nakia. She's saying, "I'm so sorry, please answer me, I'll explain everything." But apparently she's getting the silent treatment. And spoiler alert on top of spoiler alert, we really don't see Kamala making connections with any of her friends, including Nakia, through the end of the episode. It's all about her journey through Pakistan. It's all about learning what her grandmother knows and her encountering, of course, the Red Dagger. You'd think clearly seeing red refers to him. It's a hat tip to him, but also all the Red Daggers. But there's a lot more going on here. There's a bunch of ways that Kamala and other characters end up seeing red. So we flash over to Muneeba's face when you see the expression on Muneeba's face when her daughter isn't looking. You can see that her face is painfully sad and troubled. Okay, so again, you're like, how much does Muneeba know? How much is she worried about her daughter's safety? Chillmonger says, not as many doodles and effects. Must be because of the different director. That is very true. Thank you for noticing that. I think the different director is doing this episode and episode 5. And then, if I'm not mistaken, we go back to the original directors from episode 1. So that's actually very cool that Chillmonger picked up on that. But he's a pro. He knows what he's doing, man. So when Kamala gets out, there's like this whole tangle of humanity out at the airport. All the sights, all the sounds. There's plenty of colors, not just red. And it could be overwhelming to some people. But what I love is that you see that even though Kamala is like this young teenage girl, even adults could get overwhelmed by all this. The look on her face is very confident. It's a lot of bright-eyed wonder. She's not easily thrown, which if you're a superhero, that's probably a good factor to have, right? She's then hit with a spray of bright red rose petals. So now we have more of that red imagery going. And of course, one could say, if you've read through the comic book saga, at least a fair amount of it, you know that this might be foreshadowing the love interest that she ends up developing with Red Dagger, right? So that, of course, red roses are always about love. And then her cousins are greeting her and Muneeba at the airport. Kamala ends up wearing a red kind of like array of flowers around her neck. And Nani comes up. We finally see more than just kind of parts of her face on the phone. She's there in person. And I find it interesting that she's walking with a walking stick the way her father was. The way they referred to it in, what was it, episode 2, where Yusuf and kind of Muneeba too were talking about their partition story for their family. They indicated that the father, or the great-grandfather, I should say, for Kamala was much older and he was using a walking stick and he just couldn't get down off the train to look for Sana, his daughter, who had gotten separated from him. And so it's interesting to see that now Nani, or Sana, is walking with the walking stick, just like her father used to. I absolutely loved her character. I loved her delivery. It made me very nostalgic for my own maternal grandmother who helped raise me, and I feel very close to her. And she's like a typical nanny, if you will, or a typical grandma, also clashing with her own daughter throughout the episode. So Kamala examines her nanny's wrist. She sees a bunch of like loose, thin bangle jewelry. I guess she's like, is this where the other bangle is or whatever? Or is there a twin? Because I don't know that Kamala knew specifically that there was a twin. We're told in the beginning of episode 3 that the bangles do tend to come in pairs, and one is missing when the clandestines were raking through the remains of the 10 Rings temple that they were at. So I have a video on my channel about my theories about the 10 Rings. And you're welcome to see that. And if you haven't subscribed, definitely do. And if you have any ideas for videos, let me know down below and I'll give you a shout out in the video that I end up doing that's your recommendation. So Nani ends up offering the bangles to Kamala, but she's like, they're very old, but you can have them. I highly doubt that they're, a pair to the other bangle, but who knows? So Sana and Muneeba embrace, mother and daughter. And you can tell that their embrace isn't quite as warm as the embrace that Kamala gave to her nanny. Well, they've been talking on the phone all this time. You can tell they're close despite the distance, right? But there's still love there between Sana and Muneeba, as is often the case between mothers and daughters, even when they clash. So when Sana pulls back, she immediately runs her hands across the side of like one cheek of Muneeba. And I laugh because it's the typical mom thing, whether you get along or you don't. My mother would do this to me in an instant. She's like, your skin is so dry. Are you on another one of your strange diets? And so, of course, now there's a little bit of like angry sparks between the moms already. They end up kind of like having their own emotional interactions with one another. They could kind of be seeing red. And so I love it when the camera shows you that, the sign that says Karachi, City of Lights, right? Like from the beginning, even with the first trailer, you have the weekend's blinding lights. Of course, Kamala's powers are the hard light powers, right? So it's so cool. On the taxi ride home, you're seeing just how close Nani or Sana and Kamala are. They're holding hands. There's such a bond there. And then you see all the Miss Marvel B-roll flashing, and it's all very Pakistani themed. Okay, so that's really cool. Chillmonger says too many scenery montages for me. There were quite a lot of scenery montages, and they were definitely different than ones we've seen previously. But it makes sense because they're in Pakistan. And so that's a hat tip to where they are and all like the rich history there. And they go into like a gated courtyard for Nani's house, which tells me the family does have some money. How much that factors into things, I don't know, but they're not living in an apartment in the main city of Karachi. And Karachi is one of the biggest cities in the world. It's the largest city of Pakistan, but it's also the 12th largest city on planet Earth. So it's this huge city, and so many people are renting apartments. But Nani doesn't just have a house of her own to live in, Nani or Sana, but it's like enclosed with a courtyard and a gated entrance. The house is very, very big. Kamala couldn't believe the house is so big. But of course, Muneeba, just like the typical daughter, they gotta clash and have some sparks. She's like sending a parting shot back to her mother, but it could use a paint job. So then Kamala, I love how she goes sliding up the big hall, given the imagery that we see later. It's an interesting juxtaposition, but she's in Nani's house and she goes sliding up the hall, kind of like Risky Business with Tom Cruise and his socks. But it's like this joyous, like it reminds you she's a superhero. Sure, she's got powers. She's got some big stuff on her mind that she wants to try to unravel and figure out while she's in Karachi, but she's still a teenager. So she goes sliding up the hall. When she's in the hall of the Red Daggers later, it's definitely a different attitude and beatitude. She's not sliding up there. It's not, she really gives it the reverence that it deserves. So I like that. So Kamala goes off to the room where she's going to stay in. And of course, you see immediately a painting with bright red floral imagery in it. There's beauty, but red also makes you think of anger and blood. And of course, as we go through this episode, we talk about the partition a lot, and there was a lot of war and anger and blood going on during the partition. And where we end up at the end of the episode, it also makes sense. The title of the episode, which is Seeing Red, also makes sense given where you end up and what happened during that scenery and during that point in history. But we'll get there. So you can see that Nani is definitely that bohemian, creative person that Muneeba, her daughter, rails against, right? Because even from like almost the first, few minutes of episode 1, when they're driving Kamala home from her driver's test, the mother's like, oh, you remind me of my mother. She's always got her head in the clouds, So throughout this episode, you definitely see that Sana's a free spirit. She lives alone. She doesn't care. You learn along the way her husband left her. She's got nothing but like artwork and like chaos and food all throughout the house. It's not hoarding, so she's not like crazy sloppy, but she's creative and she's not as OCD as her daughter Muneeba is. So Nani apparently likes to paint and be a creator in her spare time, but a lot of what she creates is either black, white, and gray imagery, or you see the red imagery. So there's a whole wall that's like a corner, like two walls joining that have pictures and articles and stuff about the partition. And then there's a string across that corner where you see artwork that Nani has created in connection with the partition. And again, if you don't come from like, Indian, Pakistani culture, I didn't even know about the partition before this whole series started. Maybe they taught me back in the dark ages when I was young and in school. Maybe they taught me about the partition in history class. So I don't want to blame my school and say it didn't teach me, but we're talking about decades ago. And it's interesting to see how people who live in Pakistan, live in India, even going back like 1, 2 generations, just how important and just how impactful the partition was. And again, it was a bloody time. So seeing Red, the title really does reverberate through in many different ways. The mother-daughter relationships between Sana and Muneeba, they clash, they get angry, they're seeing red. Same thing a little bit with Kamala and her mother. And of course, the Red Daggers and everything else that comes with that. So Nani says to Kamala, we lost so much during the partition. I thought the only way to hang on to what we had lost was to create it myself. Now, what I think is very interesting Easter egg, you guys who saw that episode, you tell me if you agree or if at least you could see what I'm seeing with this episode, with this Easter egg. One of the pictures that Nani creates, there's a whole bunch of people huddled in a cluster. Which of course, if you see any pictures from that were taken from back in the partition days, like if you Google it, you can see so many pictures of all sorts of clutters of humanity and chaos and stuff like that. But what's interesting to me is, it has a double meaning as an Easter egg. It's not just, oh, well, look, this is a lot of the chaos and confusion and everybody's shoved together in the partition. Remember back in episode 1 when Kamala first put the bangle on and it activated, everything swung around and turned purple on her, and there was a whole clutter of people watching her. And I know that other theorists were saying that's a bunch of the Kree, or that could be a bunch of the Jinn, or that could be this and that could be that. At the end of the day, I'm wondering if when Kamala put on the bracelet and swung through, it somehow connected her back to her roots. And there's all the clutter and chaos of humanity like that happened to be there in the background. And it's connecting her to her great grandmother, Aisha, because according to Sana anyway, the last time that the bangle had been used was to save her, exactly the way Yusuf and Muneeba talked about in episode 2 at the dinner table. Her mother apparently gave it to her, sent off a trail of stars to lead her back to her father on the last train leading out of Bangladesh to Pakistan and Karachi. So, I think it connects Kamala to the last time that bracelet was used, and the backdrop between all the purple, like noor or light, it's a connection to her past and when the bangle was last activated. I'm kind of thinking that that's where all those people huddled up that were all dark came from, because it matches the picture that Sana created. It just immediately I thought of it. Okay. So then the great grandfather, she shows Kamala a picture of her great grandfather and her and Sana together. It's the only baby picture that she has of her and her father. Interestingly enough, we don't hear another thing about him. We know later that she had a husband who left her, but that's it. The men in her life don't stay. She also painted a very accurate, very vivid picture of Aisha, her mother too, who of course is wearing red and has a red flower in her hair. So again, another touchstone of seeing red, the title. Kamala pulls out the bangle from her bag and asks her grandmother, like, why did you send this to me? And she starts saying, am I? And the grandmother's like, a djinn? Like, it's no big deal to Sana. Like, she knew all along for sure. And she's like, of course, at least that's what my father told me. So to be fair, yes, there's another reference made to the great grandfather. He knew. Aisha told him. So it wasn't a mystery at all. It was not a mystery at all to him, at least along the way, that he's not in love with another human being, not having a family with her. She is Jinn, and he did know it before the end came. Hey, the Punisher, what's up? Hi, new subscriber. I appreciate it, the Punisher. What's up? What's up? Hey, you guys, if you like what you're hearing, excuse me, please give this video a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, make sure that you do it already. The Punisher, if there's a Marvel-based YouTube video that you'd like for me to create, let me know in the comments down below on this or any of my other videos. The more recent, the more likely it is I'll see it. And I'll happily not only make the video, but I'll give you a shout out in that video to give you credit for the idea. I'm more than happy to do that. Alrighty. So, and again, if I've missed any Easter eggs live or on the replay, you guys let me know, because I love to do that. I love to have people like in the community weigh in. So I love how Kamala's like, how could you be so casual about this? And Sana's very, like, for the fact that she is an artist and she's not like the most organized person in the world, she's kind of like this bohemian, but by the same token, she's just like, I don't see what all the fuss is about. It's just genetics. And then she tells Kamala, you're focusing on the wrong thing. It's not about how I see the vision of the train, because she mentions that to her granddaughter, or if you're a Jinn. The important thing is that when the bangle was used last time, it saved my life, which again is why I think the black and white huddled up humanity imagery that Sana created has everything to do with the black and the mostly black with white eyeball people that you saw when Kamala first put the bangle on. That was her connection to the last time the bangle was used. And there's a lot of crystals that are hanging up in the background of Sana's home, but also elsewhere. I want to kind of study into this more. I may or may not do a separate video that talks about the crystal imagery, because crystals can, of course, catch, bend, and refract light. And I wonder if that's somehow a connection to how Kamala uses her hard light powers, or will her hard light powers like evolve along the way? Okay. Hey, Random TV, what's going on? Good to see you here. Okay. So let's see my notes. So, okay. So Kamala makes the connection that the train that she's seeing in her visions is the same train for sure that her nanny sees. They have a little bit of a conversation, and Nani definitely says that's the train that took us into Karachi. And so Kamala's like asking her that. Sana says, yes, the bangle is trying to tell you something, Bitta. I don't know what, but I do know that you needed to be with me to figure it out. So Kamala is saying how she doesn't know how she can possibly figure this out. And she says, I feel like I'm trying to piece together 100 different things, and that I'm breaking more than I can fix, which a lot of us, when we try to do things in our life, we often feel like it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, right? So Kamala feels the same way, and she's like a 16-year-old with all this power, right? So she's feeling very overwhelmed. She cited to it in the last episode too, that she's just struggling with it. So Sana says, that's quite a puzzle. She goes, but then if you had lived like I had, lost what I have, you learn to find beauty in the pieces. Now, you guys tell me. There's definitely a famous quote that's out there. I'm going to paraphrase it. Sometimes like life cracks you wide open, but you shouldn't worry about the cracks, because that's how the light comes through. It's not the exact I'm paraphrasing that famous quote. That's where the light comes in. That's where the light shines through the cracks of everything, right? So that's how we get knowledge, through the cracks of living our lives and imperfect things happening to us. You learn more, you get exposed to more, you have more wisdom. So I think that's part of the message that Sana says to Kamala there. But that said, we don't know if it means more, because clearly Sana knows plenty, okay, from what she said off the jump. Then Kamala tries to rest in her bed. She has all these flashbacks of her being attacked by the clandestines. Her cousins wake her up. They go out to a fancy restaurant, and it's interesting, like the cultural clash that happens. Kamala goes dressed in jeans. You see her step out of the car that takes them to the restaurant. Again, this is a family who has money. Okay, they're not like, say, the average resident that lives in the city proper. You know, they've got their gated home. They're going to a gorgeous looking restaurant that's very fancy and clearly has a dress code. Kamala comes out in her red Converse sneakers. Okay, again, seeing red. And she's wearing jeans and a nice but casual outfit. And it turns out they will not allow the family in because of Kamala. And she said, well, no one told me about the no jeans policy. So they have to have drinks and appetizers outside. But Muneeba doesn't care about that. And normally Muneeba seems very like stilted and like, you know, you broke the rules. She goes, stay with your cousins in the new city. We wouldn't want you getting into any trouble. She keeps stressing that she doesn't want her daughter to get into any trouble. And she does it at certain very interesting times throughout all of the episodes. So again, you wonder how much Muneeba either knows or she kind of has figured it out. And I don't know if this is going to be important or not, but they meet up with the auntie, you know, the parent of the cousins, and makes a comment that Kamala is not a typical Pakistani name. And Muneeba just doesn't rise to the bait of it. She kind of shrugs. So then Kamala goes around the city proper. It's full of life and all sorts of color. Yes, red things pop out at you. You know, and she's enjoying it. She's trying on like these crazy blinged out glasses, and she and her cousins are having a great time. One of the cousins says the entire town is where the refugees first settled when they came during the partition phase from India, you know, into Pakistan. She's offered a red dress from a street vendor for 500 rupees, and she buys it. She tells her cousins that she wants to go visit the Karachi train station, and they're like, "Why?" Like, I'm sure they're very bored of it, and they could care less, right? But Kamala's like, "It's historic, you know, the first ever gateway through which Nani entered the country." The cousins are just not interested. They're like, "Whatever." And I'm sure it's not because they're snots. They're just like, you know, whatever. This is a train station. Like, think if you were like a train station or a subway or a bus station by you, you'd be like, whatever. We want to show you the sights, you know. Oh, I have a new subscriber. Thank you, Mike Chiro. I appreciate it. Okay. So Kamala tells her cousins that she wants to visit the train station. Okay. A street vendor takes a Polaroid picture of her and then tries to sell it to her. And she's like, listen, I'll pay you. I want the directions from you to the train station, which he gives her. She goes to Karachi station. And what you'll notice, either go back and look, you tell me, but the first line of people who come up, you know, to her and bypass her, they're all wearing red. In fact, the first person in line doesn't just have a red outfit on, they've got a huge red bag that they're balancing on their head. Red just pops out at you everywhere, but I think a lot of the times it does relate to Easter eggs, including, of course, the Red Daggers. Then she comes across a gate. It says, you are notice to visitors, you are under surveillance. We're currently in the process of historical renovation. Your patience is appreciated as we restore this section of Karachi station to its originally constructed beauty. This becomes important given the ending of the episode, okay? So again, you see the camera train on her red Converse sneakers, right? If you guys spotted any Easter eggs live or on the replay, hey, on the replay too, you guys are important. Let me know down below if you saw an Easter egg or if I'm somehow missing significance. Kamala goes into a bathroom. She puts on the mask that Bruno gave her because she knows there's surveillance. She doesn't want to get caught. Then she slips past the gate. Now, I'm telling you, if you have subscribed to my channel and or saw any of the videos I've done before, almost every single one of them, almost, I have told you, and I haven't seen other reviewers really get on this, I have told you that Kamala is going to end up showing up, I don't care if it's even a post-credit scene, in the Ant-Man and the Wasp movie, the upcoming one, Quantumania. And I knew that this was important. I also knew that when they moved the Marvels, because they flipped when those two movies were coming out, and they're doing a lot of reworking of the Marvels, I'm telling you, Ant-Man and the Wasp becomes super important. Okay, and I've said it before, and I've noted other Easter eggs and why I think it's the case that Kamala is totally going to show up in Ant-Man and the Wasp. Here, there's another Ant-Man Easter egg, and it's a big mural, okay? How many more Easter eggs do we need, really? They're conveying this very clearly, that there's going to be a crossover. The mural says in the lower left corner, you can start small and still be larger than life. Sure, Kamala's starting small with her powers, and she's young, and she's getting a lot of experience. But I'm telling you, she's going to have everything. She's going to be involved in Quantumania. And the mural is even labeled the Karachi and Avengers crossover series. So not only do I think she's going to show up in Ant-Man and the Wasp, and it's widely rumored that there's going to be a couple of deaths or major maimings in that movie. It's going to end very, very darkly. They may or may not kill off Hank Pym and his wife. But also there has been a leak that Scott Lang's going to get like major league just maimed and injured. And his daughter, Cassie's going to take over as Stature, and she was one of the Young Avengers. I also know that for a while, if you know the comic book series saga, you know that for a while, Kamala ran with the Avengers proper. So again, that's foreshadowing. I'm telling you, it's foreshadowing going into phases 5 and 6. Chillmonger says Ant-Man has a popular podcast. I know. It's interesting how they use that in episode 1 to explain how like the general public knew about what happened at the Battle of Earth. But also I'm telling you, that was just one of many Easter eggs. And the fact that in episode 1, the big Ant-Man fell over and got decapitated and everything, he's going to get so hurt. I don't know if he'll be killed, but he's going to get so hurt in Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. So, interestingly enough, they're talking about bringing Wonder Man out and having the Wonder Man series. You guys have probably heard that already. So that's like a deep, deep cut from decades ago. I am putting out a video about Wonder Man and the Scarlet Witch, because that was kind of like a love triangle between them and Vision. And I know Vision himself is gone, and even Hex Vision is gone, but White Vision flew off, and he may very well start the West Coast Avengers. Now, interestingly enough, what is it? One episode now ago, Bruno told Kamala that he's going off to Caltech. So she ends up being part of, like, say, the West Coast Avengers. She can still be in touch with Bruno, and there's definitely a lot of romantic interest and sparks between the two of them. Okay. So a dagger hits the wall where Kamala is admiring the mural. It's stuck into the part of the mural that says the word "you." Kamala backs away. The Red Dagger drops in out of nowhere. I love that from the very beginning, off the jump, these two are like chopping on each other and making fun of one another. He's like, I'm not sure what's worse, those glasses you tried on or that mask. Remember a moment ago, I said when she was in Karachi as more of a traditional tourist, she was trying on the crazy glasses. So Red Dagger has been tracking her since at least back at that time. So she's like, are you following me? And he's like, I sensed the noir, the noir or the light powers. So that's very interesting that he sensed that. It remains to be seen how he managed that. I'll go through when I get to the end of the episode, I'm going to give you some of my thoughts about that. You can give me yours for sure. So he keeps throwing daggers at her. She keeps fighting him with hard light. And basically, I'll spare you the blow by blow. Although he said, do all masked Americans have superpowers? And she's like, well, how do you know that I'm not Canadian? Like, I love it. She just doesn't even skip a beat. And he's like showing her, you're wearing your Avenger Con shirt that says Jersey City, New Jersey. And then he's like, what is the look? And she's like, nobody likes how I dress. Well, she's in Pakistan and she's not dressed traditionally. So, of course, she looks like such an American tourist. She's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb, right? So I love how he throws a dagger at her. She stops it with the hard light and it's stuck there. And she pulls it out and he's like, come on. And she throws it and she's just absolutely pitiful, which just reminds you that, okay, she's getting more comfortable in the hard light skin that she's in, but she still kind of stinks. She's not, it's not that perfect. She's not Captain America where he just, can just shrug anything off and be so smooth and be so strong. She like flips that dagger and it's hysterical how bad she is. And then she chops back at him. Where'd you learn to jump like that? Ninja Turtles? And he's like, where did you learn to create stairs like that? Huh? Donkey Kong? So it's showing you that the two are of an age and that they understand each other's pop culture references, right? And they're kind of nerdy pop culture references. So it makes you want to love them more, right? Then he says, you're not a clandestine. He figured that out, but he also knows what that is. And so she's like, you know them? And he's like, but you have the bangle. How did you get it from Aisha? And she's like, how do you even know who that is? And he doesn't answer. And then he goes, the authorities are coming because, again, that area has been barricaded. They're not supposed to be there. So the authorities have heard their scuffle and they're coming. Chillmonger says, Iman Vellani is Canadian. Oh, that is so perfect, Chillmonger. If you haven't subscribed to him, you definitely should. He picks out Easter eggs that I don't sometimes. He says that and the Canada Dry that shows up later on when she steals like a soda truck. Those were all Easter eggs. Oh my God, those are hints to her being Canadian. I love that. That's so perfect, Chillmonger. Everybody be like, thank you, Chillmonger. So, then they hear the authorities come, and Red Dagger's like, come with me if you want to live, which immediately, I'm Gen X, and I recognized that was a Terminator 2 reference. And I'm like, seriously? And she's like, what? She knows the reference. And he's like, just kidding. I always wanted to say that, but really, we need to go. So they run off. They go into a cafe. He ends up like pressing some trap door, and they go back into like where all the Red Daggers are. And he says, welcome to the Red Daggers. And he suggests to her that they can teach her to open her eyes. So I wonder about that and how that's going to like play into things. But they kind of open her eyes to something that we'll get into in a minute. So, of course, she's still quipping like a superhero, but she's not a perfect superhero. She goes, Red Daggers, what are you, in a Pakistani boy band? And he's like, not quite. So now we get to the second big hallway. The first one was when she came to her grandmother's house, and she's sliding down the hallway all casual and sock feet. Like she's enjoying herself. It's joyous. This time she's joyous. She's taking in the beautiful, like jade-colored, green-lit hallway. But she is not sliding. She's very respectful as she goes down it. Random TV says, can Kamala Khan time travel? I know that there were other comic book offshoots of the original Miss Marvel run where she kind of went into other dimensions and where they visited her in other dimensions. In one of the dimensions, her father died. In the dimension, she became Kamala Kang, which definitely is one of the many like hat tips to the fact that she's going to be clashing with Kang. And I'm telling you, she's probably going to encounter him in Ant-Man and the Wasp first, but then not be able to handle it. And then she ends up going off in the Marvels. Again, another reason why I think they flip those movies and when they're going to be released. I do think that she's going to need the help of Captain Marvel and Monica Rambeau. You guys both logging on the replay because I appreciate everybody being here. Let me know down below, who do you think is more likely to show up, even if it's in a post-credit scene in Miss Marvel? Captain Marvel or Monica Rambeau, Spectrum or Photon? Same person, different identities. Is it going to be Monica Rambeau? Is it going to be Captain Marvel? I don't think we're going to get both of them simultaneously. I'll tell you what I think after I hear from you guys down below, because I don't want to steal any of your thunder, but I definitely have my thoughts. Okay, so when they go down the hall, they reach the center chamber. It's all glass and light. Okay, again, more light imagery. The only red that seems to be there are from sashes that the various Red Daggers wear. But otherwise it's all green and white. There's a pendant chandelier that's hanging down that looks very much like a crystal in terms of its shape. And I couldn't tell if there was like a red crystal off to the side, but I definitely saw white and green crystals in it. But it's mostly jade, green, and white in there. And then there's lots of knives or daggers hung up in places too, of course. Red Dagger tells Kamala that typically tourists aren't allowed in there. And then Waleed comes in and he says, but for a descendant of Aisha's, we can surely make an exception. And then Waleed explains, because he's one of the Red Daggers, he has a red scarf around his neck too. Your great-grandmother's story is of legend. When you're ready, we have much to discuss. I'm very frustrated about what happened with him, but we'll get there in a minute. You can see that he's been in battle before, because he's got this huge scar that is on his left cheek that goes from his left to up to his nose and by his left ear. So let's see. The kids are cracking back and forth as they're eating. I know that Waleed does give her some explainers. Oh, yes. Srijan, I definitely agree with you. Captain Marvel, Chillmonger says my money is on Carol showing up. Chillmonger also says that Kamala is a polymorph. She can change her body to her will. Plus, she has a healing factor. Yes, she has a healing factor while she's using her powers, right? And she's changed into everything. She can definitely change to polymorph to look like someone else, another human. She's also polymorphed into a couch in the past. So she can create a version of herself that looks like inanimate objects, which I think is really cool. So Waleed does give her some explainers, and they do kind of teach her to see the more superimposed Noor dimension over our dimension, which is very, very interesting, because like beforehand, you might have thought of dimensions as being very separate from one another, but they multiverse of madness yet. You guys let me know down below. But when Doctor Strange and America Chavez were going through a whole bunch of the dimensions as they were tumbling through, I didn't get the feeling that they were superimposed on one another. They felt separate. But one of the things that Waleed does is that he reveals to her that the Noor dimension is literally superimposed over our own, and that other dimensions can function like that too. He explains that wearing the red scarf allows for folks to take to hide their identity as they take on the mantle of Red Dagger. He goes, our function is simple: to protect our people from the threats of the unseen. So remember the last episode where Najma was explaining things to Kamala. She went through a variety of names that the clandestines have been called, and the unseen was definitely one of those. So Kamala's like the jinn, but Waleed clarifies and said the clandestines are not like the jinn you've heard of in stories or religious texts. So Kamala's like, well, what are they and what am I? And he says he doesn't really give her an answer about her herself, but he does say that the clandestines, including Aisha, were from another world. So that's when he shows her this like digital map that shows, like, for example, Karachi and a lot of our world, and then shows that the Noor dimensional purpley and blue is superimposed over it. He goes, this map shows you how our two worlds coexist. And then, he uses this kind of technology to like show her more visuals, and it pops up like a big digital white door, like a two-dimensional like flat, that reminded me a lot of like the orangey quantum energy looking stuff that came from the TVA. And if you understand the comic book saga backstory, you know that tech originally was really created by Kang, and then he traveled back in time and brought all his goodies with him. So, and Reed Richards, or Mr. Fantastic, has definitely used very similar looking tech. I believe it was white. Was it white or blue? That he used in the Illuminati scene when he first came in Multiverse of Madness. So again, spoilers galore. So Waleed explains to her that there are many dimensions around us that we can't see. The Noor dimension is just one of them. And I'm telling you, the glow that goes over the city to represent the Noor dimension matches that bluish purplish coloration, including the bluish purplish coloration that came over Aisha's eyes the first time she put on the bangle, and the same coloration that went across Kamala's eyes when she wore the bangle. So he let her know that the Noor dimension is for sure Aisha's true home. It's apparently behind a veil of Noor that separates the two worlds. Red Dagger also tells her that the coloration that she sees represents the energy signature of that world, the Noor. So again, I'm going to go back to the Easter egg that I saw in Nani's like, I guess, her art room where Kamala was staying, and she had the artwork that had to do with the partition, and you saw the cluster of people in black, white, and gray, but they didn't have faces or anything like that. What you're going to see by the time we get to the end of the episode is that these two areas bleed across one another or overlay one another. So when Kamala first put on the bangle at AvengerCon and she kind of like flipped around in the purplish zone, she definitely was in the Nora dimension. And I'm wondering if there was an overlay from the Partition folk, which again, that was the last time the bangle was used. So it's kind of connecting her to Aisha's last use of the bangle, and then the next person apparently who used the bangle, which is Kamala. Oh, Mike Just Me Porter is here, and he's saying hi to Chill. And so, okay, so Chillmonger agrees with me. It was kind of bluish white. It was both. And again, you guys know that different colors for energy signature means different things, different dimensions. So you've got the quantum realm, that stuff is orange. And Ant-Man the Wasp, Quantumania, you know they're going to the quantum realm, right? Well, who lives in the quantum realm and rules over it? That's Kang, right? He's in Chronopolis. And there's already been pictures that show the tiny little city that Bill Murray might be the mayor of. We don't know yet. We know he's got a small bit part in Quantumania. But purplish colors we've seen before. It's kind of like magic and the fantastic stuff. So like Agatha Harkness was using witchcraft in WandaVision. That was purple. Now, Wanda used chaos magic. That was red. Okay, so like the different colors mean different things. So Waleed also explains, he's a good explainer for us, the audience. We understand the stakes even better. It's not so much that the clandestines want to get home. They don't care what happens. Bruno's kind of right when he talked about this in the last episode. He was afraid that it was going to take so much power. It was like the sun and it could blow up the earth. Waleed kind of confirms the danger by saying that if the clandestines tear down the veil of Noor that separates the two worlds, their world would be unleashed upon our world until there was nothing left. Their world would consume our world. So he goes, that's why it's so important to keep that bangle safe. Of course, that bangle factors into the last scene. That's like a Chekhov's gun where he opens the loop and says, you got to keep that bangle safe. And the bangle, I don't know how compromised it becomes at the end of. So interestingly, Kamala had noted to Bruno, episode 1 or 2, where she was saying that there's definitely something written on the bangle translated. She thought it might be in Arabic. Well, Waleed is able to translate what's on the bangle. He said, I haven't seen that before. In all the years I heard about the bangle and basically studied it, there was never mention of an inscription, but he's able to translate it. And he says, what you seek is seeking you. So Kamala doesn't know what to make of that. She's like, an important message. And Waleed admits, I don't know, but it must have been important to someone. I wonder how much of this. Now, some people have theorized that Aisha's dead, that the clandestines like got to her and pushed her under the train, and that's the train leaving out of Bangladesh to go into Pakistan / Karachi. That's why you see the train all the time, because that's how Aisha died. We know by the time we get to the end of this episode that clandestines can definitely be killed, and it's not like it takes something so easy to kill them either. But it's interesting how lots of folks know a lot about that bangle, but they didn't know that there was an inscription there. I wonder if Aisha was able to put on that bangle before she sent her daughter Sana off with it, with the trail of stars, to lead her to where her father was on that train. I wonder if Aisha put it there, and basically the message to Sana was, what you seek is seeking you. Because Sana also says, as we go into other scenes where she's like up on the rooftop, well, not the rooftop, but like out on like, what's the word that I'm thinking of? They go outside, not a patio. Geez. Go ahead, folks, do this stuff live. Occasionally, you get a brain seizure. But she's standing outside and she's looking at the skyline with Kamala, and she says that she's still trying to figure out who she is. A balcony. Thank you, Chillmonger. Oh, yes, a balcony. They're out on a balcony. They're looking at the skyline, Santa/Nani and her granddaughter, Kamala, and she's still trying to figure out who she is. She's seeking her true identity. I'm going to get to that later. So I think there's definitely a dual meaning to the bangle, and I think that's something that Aisha managed to inscribe on it before she sent her daughter off. I do think, I could be wrong. This is my theory. You tell me what you think down below, both live stream and replay. You're all important. And let me know, do you think that Aisha's still alive? Do you think that Aisha's going to come back before episode 6 is done to reunite with her family, even if it's briefly? Okay, so we changed scenes to the Department of Damage Control Supermax prison. It's all dark and shadowy. We are not going out of our way in all of these episodes to have the DODC painted in a flattering light. They're a bunch of jerks. You know, whether they don't even think to take off their shoes in the temple, which happened an episode ago. They're kind of very arrogant about the way they treat the supers or the enhanced individuals. You know, they're kind of very rude about the mosques and how they're being surveilled and all that. And you know, so they're just, I don't think they're a very sympathetic group, and it's not just because they're the government. There's like another layer going on here. Do you guys think that one or more of them are scrolls? You can let me know, because we're going into Secret Invasion as well. They're still shooting scenes from Secret Invasion, and now I hear that they're doing 4 months worth of reshoots for Secret Invasion. Pre-Skrull War, I do think will also factor into the Marvels and with the Captain Marvel story going forward. And I do think Kamala is going to get into that as well. So, you know, all the clandestines are still, you know, held up with like chains and stuff. But long story short, they're being tortured, which isn't cool. Basically, long story short, the clandestines managed to break away, get free. Kamran's hurt. His mother, Najma, does want to make sure that he's okay, and they confirm that he's okay. But at the end, as they're leaving, she says to let Kamran go, to leave him there. He's not coming with us. He's made his choice. Now he has to live with it. Let's go get the bangle. And you can just see the look on Kamran's face. He's all torn up. He's like, Mommy? Like he regresses to calling her Mommy. And she stares back at him, and you can tell, I like the writing, I like the acting, I really do. You can tell that she's torn up too. She's not all excited about having to make this decision. It's a tough decision, but she sticks by it, and they all leave Kamran to go off with the other clandestines, and he's looking pissed. So I don't know. I love how the story is unfolding anyway, because you don't know, does he eventually turn to become a bad guy like he did in the comic book saga? That he's all bitter at Kamala because he's lost his family? Or is he bitter at them, and is he going to parachute in? And if you haven't seen my video yet, who's Miss Marvel's love interest? That's my most popular video on this channel so far. I think I'm like at almost 1,300 views of it. You know, we do talk about how at times there's a lot of layer of complexities, as often is the case with teenagers and being in love, where there's like multiple different love interests that go on at any given point in time in Kamala's life. They may still be carrying that forward through the end of the miniseries. And I know that several of the stars, besides Iman Vellani, who's been signed up to show up in the Marvels again. And that includes the actress that portrays Muneeba Khan, the father Yusuf, and the son Amir. Okay, so yeah, okay, so Dano Cosmic. Hey, what's going on, Dano Cosmic? Good to see you here. I hope you're still here. By the end of DODC, might as well be the real villain. They're definitely one of the baddies here. They're not the only ones. The clandestines aren't the only ones. And I wonder who else isn't going to be so cool. But yeah, I think Department of Damage Control, they've been carrying throughout. I mean, Iron Man created them. they ended up kind of creating Vulture and his crew. Like they've had a long-standing history before you even really get hardcore into Agent Cleary and kind of him being a brat in Spider-Man No Way Home. Right, he's very sleazy with his questioning, and I know sometimes in law enforcement you want to kind of trick people into kind of just being honest with you, but he was really really greasy. So yeah, they're definitely going to be one of the big baddies for a while, and I do think they're going to factor into Secret Invasion as well. Might just me, Porter. I agree with you 100,000,000%. I just named too much not to show up. Yeah, I think she's not dead at all. Hey, Christian, what's going on? Good to see you. And Dano Cosmic is like still here. That's good. Dano Cosmic says definitely a link to Skrull, in my opinion. Still have the Kree sleeper cell comment from Far From Home. Have to think that there are hidden Krees and Skrulls on Earth. Absolutely. If you knew the comic book saga, you kind of knew that had to come into play. They're going way more cosmic as we get into phases 5 and 6. My understanding is that Thor, Love and Thunder, and who isn't excited for that movie, let me know down below, live or on the replay. But my understanding is that Thor, Love and Thunder ends phase 4, and now we're into phase 5. I kind of like that they're organizing things by phases. Some people have wondered if they should continue to bother to do that, but I don't know. I like it for organizational purposes, and we kind of get the parameters of what they're going to cover, what's going to unfold, what's going to happen. And I also love that they're not doing direct adaptations of the comics. I love Rob from Comics Explain, and Rob has said outright, and I agree with him, that I've already seen that show before. Give me some interesting twists. Make it even more in depth, right? So we're back at Nani's house, right? What's going on, Christian? We're back at Nani's house. Kamala's going up the stairs seeking her. So now this is where they're out on the balcony. Thank you, Chillmonger. Out on the balcony. And they're looking at the city skyline, the sun setting. And Sana says, "You found me in my hiding spot. Your mother's on a cleaning rampage downstairs, and I thought I needed a break." She is so bohemian that her own child makes her feel like a teenager. So the two teens are like hiding out from the authority figure, which is the mother, right? And Muneeba, she likes controlling. She does it from a place of love. She's not trying to be mean, but like a lot of mothers, it's like, let me get that crumb off you. Your shirt is a stain. I'll go wash it. I'll go clean. Like this is how Muneeba shows love, right? And she really wishes her mother would be more like her. Mom is that child that really went in the opposite direction. A lot of times when one has children, they can act like your mini-me, or they can act like they are just diametrically opposed to you and they break off to go be their own person. It's very rarely that we truly have somebody that isn't one or the other extreme. And clearly, if nothing else, Muneeba's reaction to her mother being such like, a bohemian is to get a sense of control and order. Dano Cosmic said, Feige said we'll find out about future phases at SDCC this year. I agree. He definitely said that. I like that they're getting back into that. Again, it's a wise decision for them. I mean, of course they have Disney Plus Day. Of course they have their own stuff going on. But I also like that they're showing up at Comic-Con for a little bit. They said they were going to bring like one trailer. It's probably for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I feel so bad for that project. Don't you? I mean, seriously. Oh my God, Chadwick Boseman passing. I was like, that kid was way too young. I mean, I'm in my 50s, so I can call him a kid. That kid was young, and it killed me. He was so perfect as Black Panther. To be honest with you, you have to give the folks at Marvel MCU credit. They have been pitch perfect, in my opinion, about who they picked for every series, every movie, every project. I could just not imagine better. I can't. Even the actor who voices, and of course I'm going to have, a brain seizure on that too. The character that voices Rocket Raccoon, perfect. That was exactly the voice that I thought I would hear coming from him. So let's see. Mike Just Me Porter says, now that Kenobi is done, do you think Miss Marvel's views are going to go up a little or a lot? I think people have realized that they fell asleep on the show. Bradley Cooper, thank you, Dino Cosmic. I appreciate that. When I prepare for my pre-edited videos, which is a lot of what's on this channel, I have all sorts of time to go figure out my brain seizures. But I appreciate you guys catching me on the live. I really appreciate my community. That's awesome. You guys are great. And I do agree with you, Mike Just Me Porter. And I said this last week, but for the benefit of anybody who wasn't here last time, live or on the replay. And thank you for the thumbs up too, you guys. Every engagement helps. I'm still a small channel building, so I really appreciate that. The algorithms love it when people comment, when they thumbs up, when they share, all those things. That you're getting a lot of good karma helping a small channel out. Okay, so yes, I agree. And I think that the good folks over at Disney / Marvel have learned an important lesson. Why the heck they couldn't pace themselves and drop these things separately and give everything a chance to breathe like it's fine wine or something? I don't know. Like, why would you ever? I understand that there may not be everybody who loves Star Wars and Marvel simultaneously, but like, I think there's so many people that like both. And it's like, how many things are you going to watch? Not all of us are self-employed working from home. You know what I mean? So I think they may have learned a lesson about pacing, right? Because we're all spoiled when it comes to Disney Plus and Marvel and their other properties. I would really rather them run series and not have any pauses between them. I mean, even if some are Star Wars-esque, like now we're going to have Andor dropping, right? And all of that. Pace yourselves. What's a rush? Like, everybody has to pick. I do think that Miss Marvel is going to go back. The views for the Miss Marvel videos are definitely going to go up. They did get very good critical acclaim. I think they've gotten better reception than even Loki did, if I'm not mistaken. And people who, for whatever the reason, weren't a fan or didn't think to read the Miss Marvel comics back in 2014 when they had the first release. I mean, it was so successful. They went through 5 different printings of it in 2014 alone. I think people don't realize how much of a linchpin she kind of was for a lot of things in the Marvel comic book saga. And I think folks are going to be taken to school with this miniseries. And I'm telling you, I do think people are going to circle back and watch other things now that they've gotten Obi-Wan out of their system for now. Those are just my thoughts on it. You guys let me know what you think, because this isn't just all Stacy Radio all the time. Y'all are important to me. You let me know. Mike Just Me Porter says, a grandma knows who they are. I still wonder if the mom does. She may or she may not. And that's another good function of the good writing that's going on throughout this series. Does she or doesn't she keeps you interested? There's that certain level of tension that goes beyond the mother-daughter struggle of Muneeba and Sana, and then Muneeba and her daughter Kamala. And those are 2 different types of 2 different flavors of ice cream, but it's still ice cream, right? It's the struggle between mothers and daughters, but separate. How much does Muneeba know? I'm going to put it out there and say, you guys tell me if you picked up on this. In episode 1, when Bruno comes over and the mother's like, hold on, I'll get you some leftovers. And he's like, I gotta go. You don't have to worry about it. She comes running out 60 seconds later with this tall bag, this tall clear bag that clearly shows you all the different boxes that she packed up. And the one on the bottom is for his grandmother, because I think she doesn't like extra spice or whatever. It's like, was that kind of just like a ha-ha mom joke, or was that a blink and you missed it? The mother has powers too. And she just kind of occasionally uses it when she wants to, but doesn't want her daughter to use it because she knows her daughter is more like her mother. And as you find out later, all the stuff that the mother has gone on and on about how different the family is, and she's got all these theories. Muneeba makes it clear she fled America to escape all of that, not because she doesn't love her mother. All right. So it's interesting how Sana asks Kamala, so have you found what you came looking for? Kamala's like, it's a bit of an education. We're all getting educated about this stuff along with her. But what I think is important for multiple reasons is when Sana says to Kamala, even at my age, I'm still trying to figure out who I am. And I'm like, that's kind of all of us there, Sana. We're all like that. And the older you get, 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, you think you have your life all figured out. But what you learn along the way and what wisdom tends to teach you is that we're all at just different phases and stages of our lives. We're all still evolving. You're never like done or cooked living life, right? Because then Sana says, my passport is Pakistan. My roots are in India. And in between all of this, there is a border. There is a border marked with blood and pain. So again, seeing red harkens back to the partition. That was a bloody, bloody period of time that a lot of the world knows about, and I don't think enough of the world knows about. Appreciate what happened with the partition because people were being ripped from their communities, their families, and their friends. And the border that was put up, she says people are claiming their identity based on a borderline that some old Englishmen created when they were fleeing the country. How is one to deal with that? I think that's a very fair question. And just because somebody becomes a mother or a grandmother, just because somebody goes through the decades, doesn't mean that they're going to have their whole lives figured out. And it's really part of the journey. It's not about the destination, as the old saying goes. And even Kamala's asking her grandmother, have you found what you're looking for? Do you think you're ever going to figure it out? I love what Sana does with her reaction. She smiles. She's kind of comfortable with not knowing and going through the journey of it all. And she shakes her head and she goes, but what's the rush? And she's a grandmother. You know what I mean? She's like in the third act of her life. But I love how she's grounded and centered with the fact that she's still in her process. And her artwork is part of her process to work through her thoughts and emotions and memory and all her loss and pain and the blood I'm very sure she saw as a small child. Dano Cosmic says, feel like Miss Marvel more than any other Marvel Disney Plus show is really doing such an amazing job with all of the side characters. Such great moments. I agree. I love the Disney Plus series. They're all really good in their own way, not just in terms of moving the story forward and doing the character studies, but I love how you explore the human condition with superhumans. It's the overlay of superpowers, like with Loki, when he goes through his character journey and he becomes the character that, I don't know, I'm a goofball. I was kind of always hoping he would become. And then he fell in love with Sylvie and she fell in love with him. But it's kind of like, also, I know that like Mobius was like, oh, gross, you fell in love with yourself. What a narcissistic thing to do. But is it though? Because we all need to fall in love with all of the sides of our personalities. There may be things you want to work on, but nevertheless, you need to learn to love yourself. So I look at all the Marvel properties from comic books on up as not just a phantasmagorical, like, you know, fights and journeys that these characters go on, but it also shows you their internal and external relationships and struggles to love themselves, to come out as whoever they are, you know, to balance their lives, like Daredevil. Daredevil had a heart, and as a lawyer, I often will, as a lawyer myself, like She-Hulk and Daredevil are two of my favorites because they're attorneys, right? And Daredevil's gone through a lot of struggles and a lot of phases in his life as he learns to like accept himself as a lawyer, as a vigilante. Is it both? And it's hard for him to balance both sides of his life. He may be succeeding in one area but failing in another. How many of us feel that way, right? So I love the writing. I love the deep character dives that we do because it makes you feel more invested in those characters. You understand their backstories. And one thing that I love about Marvel is it's such an intricate story long before the MCU. I love the fact that like Kevin Feige is a fan and he did involve comic book writers with the first round of what went on to become known as Phase 1. You just get such a depth and like multiple dimensions of the storytelling that's going on. I don't think ever in cinematic history have we ever had a franchise that has done such a great job, so many different facets, so many different levels and so many different now methods of storytelling. I don't know. It's just the best. Poor DCEU. It is not doing well. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Dano Cosmic. Might Just Me Porter said, we didn't see the conversation where Kamala convinced her mom to go to Pakistan to see her grandma that didn't show up to her grandson's wedding. I agree with that. I wonder if you had the scene cut for time. I know that one thing Marvel tends to let folks do, like with the movies, but I think also to a degree with the shows, is they let them do all sorts of shoots galore, and then they carve out and they kind of finish the storytelling that way. It's not even that unusual to film. But I agree with you that was the only thing that felt a little bit too quick and two-dimensional, comparatively speaking. Might Just Me Porter, because I agree, like that would be kind of like, it's kind of convenient. You pissed off the family by pulling the fire alarm because the Illuminati's turned her in on that. But now I'm going to spend money for us to fly over to Pakistan. I don't know. But it also does show that Muneeba does love her mother, which we get into some of that in a minute too. Because now the mother wants to bring Sana back with them to America. So then I guess, as teens will do, Miss Marvel shared her number with Red Dagger, who you see in the clouds above Nani and Kamala the words, "You free." So, Nani says to her, look, go be young, I'll handle your mother. So Kamala and Red Dagger hang out at the bonfire. It's all dark out. As soon as I saw that one of them had a guitar by a bonfire, I mean, come on, this is going to be like a romantic scene, and it is. The kids are making like googly eyes at one another, and the one guy's singing like a love song on his friggin' banjo, and they're eating and they're just having fun being young and just enjoying each other. And we learn that this Red Dagger's name is Kareem. He asks her to create a nickname for herself, and of course she calls herself Sloth Baby, which that she loves the sloth stuffed animals in the Disney Plus series. She did in the comics too, and even in episode 1 when she's doing her fan fiction on her own YouTube channel, it's called Sloth Baby Productions. So I love how you have all these touch tones going on. It's, again, very well layered. So now we're back at Nani's house, and this is where Muneeba's like running around like a general. She's cleaning like a fiend, and Sana's just sitting there on the couch watching her because this isn't her vibe, right? And so you may recognize yourself in either Sana or Muneeba here, whether you're male, female, or however you identify. You've got one relative that's always like the intense one, and the other one's that's just like, let it be, right? So Nani, ever the artist, is sitting there working on, some needlepoint. Yet another creative progress. She's very multi-passionate, multi-talented. And then Muneeba, and there's a record player, playing. There's all sorts of music. And Muneeba takes the needle off the record and says, why do you always have to leave everything such a mess? And what are all these newspapers and magazines? And why are there so many toffee boxes everywhere? And Sana's quiet for a moment, and she says, the toffee boxes are there for you. You liked them as a child, so I kept them around just in case you came back. I may have eaten most of them along the way. So, she's holding them there because she misses her daughter. She misses her daughter and the family that she's created along the way. She's, for whatever the reason, staying behind in Pakistan. And, she's got these things there because she loves her daughter. They're mementos of, one of her daughter's favorite things. That clearly she likes too, because she ended up eating a lot of them. But, let's see. Might Just Me Porter says, exactly, preach. MCU is wonderful. Feige is somewhat loyal to source material, and it has done him well. Now the characters look comic book accurate costumes as well. They've definitely been layering that in. I think with phase 1, it's a lot of launching things and planning into phase 2. But I love how they are now going back and giving us even more layers of things that if you're a comic book fan, you're like, oh, got it. Oh, I recognize that. And I know that some people are saying with Multiverse of Madness, if you weren't a comic book fan much or at all, you couldn't appreciate like the Illuminati, or all like the different kind of moments and Easter eggs and things that were referred to in there. Like the Book of Vishanti. And I'm surprised the Book of Vishanti didn't factor in a little bit more, but that's just me. You know, but at the end of the day, I think that it's such a fascinating world. It kind of, the Easter eggs, even if people don't even understand the concept of Easter eggs, things will jump out at them. And if they enjoyed the experience enough, they go back and they learn. And then they become part of this society that we're all members of. So let's see. Oh, I love how Sana said also that she kept the toffee boxes around just in case her daughter ever came back. Then she gets her walking stick out. She tries to get up again. She wants to help her daughter. And then Muneeba sits next to her. She starts massaging her leg. Sana's in pain. And then Muneeba's like, I think maybe it's time you start considering coming to live with us in America. I don't know if Sana's going to do that or not. And she laughs and she says, and there I thought you came halfway across the world to get away from me. And Muneeba's made it clear that even though mothers and daughters clash, right, that's very common. That's a very common experience. She clarifies, I wasn't trying to get away from you. I just needed a change. I was continuously being shunned by the neighbors because of my crazy mother and her wild theories. So Sana's not having it, and she waves it away, and she's like, nope, that is absolutely not true. But Muneeba says that it is, and this is where she kind of gives us a little bit of information. Even after Baba or her father left you, you continued to cling to these fantastic theories. And she doesn't lose it. I gotta tell you, her reactions are pretty cool. Excuse me for a minute. I've been talking for a while. But she pulls her leg away. She tucks it under her skirt. You can tell she's not thrilled about being injured, or what have you. She goes, I just thought I might share them with you, meaning the theories. And Muneeba starts to cry, and I teared up too. She said, I didn't need your stories, Mummy. I needed my mother. Now, for those of us who are parents, as our kids get older, like if we have to work, especially outside the home, or even if, like me, for many years I've worked inside the home. I spent 23 and a half years working outside the home, so I've done my time. And then I've been self-employed in the years since. And I know that even though I've been around for my child physically, sometimes my son's like, I want you to put that work down. I need my mom. And I'm like, but I'm working hard to try and, help to support the household. My husband does too. He's an entrepreneur. He has his own brick and mortar business. But our kid's like, I need you. I need your attention right now. I need your total focus right now. And sometimes we have forest in the trees moments. For those of us who are old enough to remember it, it's that whole Cats in the Cradle song, right? And you can look that up to see the lyrics, because I do think that's kind of applicable here too. So Muneeba's grieving because she didn't have the relationship that she wanted with her mother, because her mother really just wanted to keep her head in the clouds and believe what she wanted to believe. But think about it. Post-partition, her family left Bangladesh to go to Karachi, to go to what became Pakistan, because they, are Islamic. They're Muslim. In their beliefs. That was one of the rifts that caused some people to leave one territory to go to another, right? So Sana's left to go with her father. Well, she was small, right? Her father clearly was Islamic. He resettled in Pakistan, in Karachi. The mother, with her beliefs and where her family came from, and the bangle and Aisha and her powers, they've mentioned the previous episode that worship or admiration of the jinn is actually against the Quran, and that is true. So, that's going to create a lot of friction if you're traditional, if you don't believe in that sort of stuff, let alone it runs counter to your religious teachings, right? So Sana's clinging to what she knows is the truth kind of cost her daughter a lot in terms of growing up. And I love how when Kamala comes back in from hanging out with Red Dagger and all them, she sits down with her mother to check in with her. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And Minnie was kind of like sad, but kind of eating the toffee like wistfully and happily. And, she's like, "Oh, yeah, you know how mothers are. Sit, have a toffee." And I love that for a couple of reasons. Number one, she's connecting to a good part of her childhood. And it's kind of showing she appreciates post conversation with Sana that her mother did really love her and did really miss her when she went to America. But I also love it in that, the last episode, Yusuf comes into the Circle Q and he buys like this Hostess cherry pie from Bruno and says, "Oh, I've been sneaking these. Like, Muneeba won't let me have it. I love their syntheticness. But meanwhile, Muneeba's just sitting there and she's chewing down. She's just gorging on toffee. And then Kamala tries it and she doesn't like it. It's Muneeba's thing and Muneeba's thing with her mother. But it's okay that it's not Muneeba's and Kamala's thing. Muneeba could care less. They laugh and says you just need strong teeth to enjoy these. They laugh. They're enjoying a nice mother-daughter moment. But I like how you could see that Sana and Muneeba have that connection with Toffee, and yet Muneeba and Kamala have a connection even if Toffee doesn't factor in, which is funny. Then we get to the next scene. It's sunrise in Karachi. Kamala's back with the Red Daggers in, I guess their temple or their hideout or whatever. We're back with Waleed, and he says, "I believe your genetics could be the answer to why you can shape the Noor here." I think that does, again, confirm what was kind of discussed in the previous episode, that it might very well be that when Aisha put on the bangle, she's not of this world. So she does have DNA to give her powers, but you can't really use the Kree artifact. I'm calling it a Kree artifact because it was a blue arm. You can get Kree that aren't blue. They could be, dark skin pigmentation, light skin pigmentation, and of course, blue skin pigmentation. So this is what I'm still calling Kree tech, but you can't use it unless you have the DNA of both this Earth and the Noor dimension, which Kamala has and Aisha didn't. So again, I think that explains why Aisha couldn't really use the bangle, although she had a connection to it, but Kamala could. And so Waleed is kind of confirming that Kamala can shape the Noor and use all the benefits of the bangle because of her DNA. Interestingly enough, Kamala's also wearing that red dress that she bought in Karachi proper. And her hands are covered in Noor. She's pulling up her powers, and Kareem and Waleed are watching her do it. Then she manages to encase her entire body in that Noor, but for her head. And it comes across as armor, and then it disappears. And so Waleed's like, "Well, we may not have fancy armor like you, but you should know that there is history in every thread of this fabric." And he gives her a green vest that she puts on. He says, "So you always remember where you came from. You're not alone." I kind of wish that Waleed could have said more. Unfortunately, the way the episode ends, we're probably not hearing from him again. So right after that, basically the clandestines, that glass ceiling, that was a Chekhov's gun and you didn't even know it. They showed you the glass ceiling, then it breaks. All the clandestines drop in there, big old fight breaks out. Let me see. They end up getting out of there. There was a door with a lot of glass, and you saw Waleed breaking it down to get out and to escape. He's always talking about she should learn how to see and she should learn how to see more. But all those cracks in the glass, he's destroying something you could see through. Maybe that kind of foreshadowed what was going to end up happening with him. They escape out into the street. There's this whole chase scene. You can see that the clandestines are not, they may be super strong, but they can be killed because it turns out that Kareem ends up killing one of them by throwing 2 daggers into him. So he falls down dead. Kamala knocks over another one with a truck that she steals. So that's the whole, who gave me credit? Who picked out I think it was Chillmonger that picked out that the actress who portrays Miss Marvel is Canadian. So she made the joke about, how do you know I'm not Canadian earlier? And now she steals a soda truck and there's Canada Dry falling all over the place. So I'm supposing he's right. That's an Easter egg or a poker's tell to her. So, okay. So one of them dies there. They end up running off to a place where they end up being blocked off. But before they do, Najma and Waleed face off. Waleed sees the kids running with one of the members of the Clandestines giving chase. One's already dead. So he throws out daggers to kill that person. Najma ends up stabbing him to death, and he falls off the balcony to the ground below. Oh, my. There's a major fight that ensues. Kamala's using her powers. She's doing really well. Najma turns around and stabs Kamala in the bangle. And then everything explodes. First, there's like an initial explosion of purplish light. Then everything goes white. The screen whites out, and Kamala finds herself on some old-timey looking train tracks. She's apparently been transported back to the time of the partition, and everybody's fighting to get on the trains that are there. They make it clear that she's there on the night that her great grandmother sent her grandmother's Sana or Nani off with great grandpa. Because one woman tells her daughter within Kamala's earshot, this is the last train tonight. So I think that's very clearly projecting to us, the audience. It's conveying to us, the audience. Kamala's back there, not just during the partition itself. There were days and days that trains were leaving. This was like the last train leaving. And so Kamala knows she's back where the bangle was first used. Or last used, I should say, by Aisha. Everyone's fighting to get on the train. There's all sorts of calamity and stuff like that. Everybody's crowding onto the train. It's chaotic. It's just so impossible. Kamala climbs up to the top of one of the trains. She looks down. There's nothing but darkness and chaos and steam coming up from the engines. And the end credits play out, but this time, instead of the backdrop of Jersey City, New Jersey, where the comic book images from Kamala are from her 2014 run, they're now being superimposed over buildings in Karachi and not New Jersey. So here's my thing. You guys can tell me what you think here live or on the replay, whether I missed an Easter egg or I missed a nuance or something important. I don't think I did, but who knows? This was just my first viewing. I will have videos that I create that come out on my channel to break down certain things a little bit deeper from episode 4. But what I will say is that, who do I agree with here? I agree with, yeah. I will definitely tell you that Aisha might just be, no, it was Dano Cosmic, I think, who agreed with me first. Aisha's coming back. She's not dead. And they're referencing her way too many times, as Mike Just Me Porter said, for her to just be dead. I don't think she's dead. And I think that with the bangle being stabbed, it transported Kamala back in time. So who asked me if she was time traveling? Because I know in the comic book saga, she was in different, like, dimensions at different times. But someone had asked me if she was a time traveler. Definitely here, and I don't know if it's just the bangle that takes her there. Sana had made it clear that the bangle was last used by Aisha to get her onto the train with her father. When the bangle was hit, Kamala's transported back to that last time. Do I think that Kamala is going to see what happened and we'll see Aisha that way? Yes. Do I think we'll learn what happened to Aisha in episode 5? Of course I do. I still don't think she's dead. And I think she's going to be part of the solution at the very, very end. All right, so this is my review. Oh, thank you for the thumbs up. So, this is the end of my review thus far. I definitely thank the couple of new subscribers I got today. I really appreciate it. And again, if there is a video that you want me to make, whether it's Miss Marvel related or not, as long as it's Marvel related in general, you can put that down in the comments section, live or on the replay. I will make that video, and I will also give you credit in a shout out in the video, just like I did for Mike Just Me Porter recently. All right, you guys. So if I missed anything, let me know. If you have questions about my take on anything, let me know in the comments down below. And I will see you all later. We come out with content every weekday, whether it's live streams with the replays or whether it's pre-edited videos. So definitely make sure you subscribe if you haven't. I listen to my community a lot. So if you have any videos you want me to make, let me know in the comments of any of my videos. Obviously, more recent ones, I'm more likely to see it faster. Oh, and Mike says, thanks for the credit. You are most welcome, my friend. All right, I will talk to you guys later. Happy Wednesday. Bye.